ArchiHexago is a casual puzzle game that takes inspiration from the match-3 genre, but also from games like DOF Romantic and Panorama, for example, where you're laying environmental tiles down into clusters to create environments to be cleared from the board, as opposed to building a town. This is a budget title, and so come with budget expectations, and I really enjoyed the mechanics of this game, even if it kind of stalls out before the end, because not much is done with it once it's all laid out in front of you. Every level is a circular island, and it could be either a small one or a big one, and they're named after real-world islands in planet Earth. They don't look like them though, but as you progress through the game, more and more obstacles are placed onto the islands that then affect where you can place the different tiles that you're trying to merge together. There are 6 different tile types, and each one has its own rule, which you need to obey, otherwise you'll find you'll hit game over quite quickly, and game over is when you've got nowhere left to put tiles on your island. Forest and grasslands need to be connected in any which way you can, so long as they're touching each other, and forests have to have 5 connected to clear them, grasslands 7, and they'll create 5 and 7 points that get added to your tally in the top left hand corner. Once you hit 100, you'll unlock the next island and can progress, but I recommend staying and trying to go for the highest score for whatever you've got locally in your game. Alongside that, there are mountain tiles, which have to be connected in groups of 3, but they can't be like horizontal or vertical lines. They have to be in like triangle clusters of 2 and 1 or 1 and 2 above and below each other to collect and kind of form a mountain range and then be cleared from the board. Beach tiles are trickier because they have to have at least 3 of whatever it is that you're clearing connected to the outer perimeter of the island, because obviously a beach should be next to the sea. However, because tiles are given to you in collections of clusters of all different types, quite often you'll end up with beach tiles splattered in the middle of your island trying to work out how to get rid of them. So you'll be working out how to keep a beacher on the edge and work your way back to try and clear like a snaky beach all the way into the centre of wherever it is that you started from. Lakes are also very tricky as well, and early on in the game they are your kryptonite because they have to be in a snaky line. So you can't have like a cluster like the mountains where you've got 2 and 1 together or 2 and 2 together, because if it just pulls into each other as a lake or a stream, it becomes a swamp, and swamps aren't clearable unless you perform a special action, which I'll get onto in a minute. So that's your worst case scenario, because then that means that there's now spaces on the board that you can't use. So long as you keep it in like a snaky vertical horizontal line kind of moving around, lakes are quite easy to clear. Deserts, however, which only come in at the very end of the game, are very tricky because they have to be surrounded by all the different other elements and cut off from everything else so that they can then disappear. But then that leaves gaps in the middle of where you could potentially have put tiles before and cleared stuff that way, so they become like little beehive clumps of missing island that you then can't fill. All of this adds together quite nicely, and some of the additional special actions that you can do go to some way to try and clear some of those errant desert tiles or lakes that might have become swamps. And they're triggered usually around the campfire that's in the centre of the screen. So it might be things like make a lake from the campfire in the centre to the outer rim of the sea. And so when you do that, it generates a special action point alongside bonus points for you. And those special actions are quite handy because it could be that you remove a tile of your choice from the map, which I found particularly useful. But it could also be that you swap out what you've currently got as your next tile to lay down for something else that's randomly generated instead, and that can be useful, particularly if you're like, not more desert please. ArchiHexago has some really good ideas, but what I did find was that it stops at the point where it starts to become difficult and interesting, and you have to think about your moves. The level designs aren't different enough to make you think really about your tile placement until right at the very end, and then the game stopped and I thought, oh, we're going on to World 2. Nope, it was over. And whilst there is a bonus create your own island mode, which is fun for a few minutes as well to then go and play on your own designs, you are farmed into having only a couple of choices to kind of make, a big or a small island and a couple of rock formations. So again, you're quite limited. The other thing as well is that you only get 3 different tiles out of the 6 per level that you can play with, and that limits the amount of strife and trouble that you can run into, and I felt that that was also somewhat of a limiting factor for this game too. I feel like there could have been a small, medium and large level type to enable you to then have more different tiles on there too, which would have caused more trauma and trouble for the player, and that could have been a great little hard mode at the end. But for £1.70, I'm not complaining too much. It just felt like it stops at the point of where I was like, this is getting really interesting. And I'd like to see this idea, I think, expanded more on in a future game, should there be another one in the series. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane-network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.